function. I've had a lot of bad breaks. You're right where that young woman was. You're letting a temporary season, something that contradicts what God put in you, to change who you are. You need to dig down deep and say, I'm not moved by the circumstances. I'm not bitter over the delay. I'm not upset with these brothers that threw me into the pit. None of these things are going to change who I know God made me to be. A friend of mine told how when he was 6 years old, the teacher gave the class an assignment. They had to write down what they wanted to be when they grew up. He had seen a man on television that was very funny. That was his dream as a little boy. He knew he wanted to be on television making people laugh. So he wrote it down. He came from a low-income family. They didn't have much. Plus he had a major problem with stuttering. The teacher started calling the kids' names out and reading what they had written. When she came to his, she stopped and said, "Little Stevie, please come up here to the front." He started walking to the front of the class, so proud, thinking she was going to congratulate him. It's just the opposite. She said, "Stevie, what did you write down?" He said, "I wrote that I want to be on television making people laugh." She said, "Now, Stevie, do you know anyone on television?" He said, "No, ma'am." She said, "Has anyone in your family ever been on television?" He said, "No, ma'am." She said, "Then you take this back and write down something more realistic." As a 6-year-old boy, he was confused. Nobody had ever told him what he couldn't become. That night, he told his father what happened. He showed him the paper where he had written down he wanted to be on television. His father said, "Listen here, Stevie, you put this in your top drawer, and every morning before you go to school, and every night before you go to bed, you look at that paper and thank God that one day you will be on television." He was telling him, don't let the environment determine your identity. He had no money, no connections, no way out in the natural, but God is supernatural. He won't put a dream in your heart that he can't bring to pass. But there will be these times of testing where circumstances seem just the opposite. People tell him it's not going to happen. Don't get your hopes up. Man, you saw the medical report. You don't come from the right material. You're not king material. You don't come from the right family. You're not king material. You're just a shepherd boy. Let that go in one ear and out the other. People don't determine your destiny. They can't see what God put in you. They didn't hear what God whispered to you in the night. Don't expect everyone to cheer you on. David's own father didn't even call him in when Samuel first came to the house. Don't be surprised if the environment, the people around you, contradict what God has spoken to you. That doesn't mean it's not going to happen. That's a sign that it's on the way. Now you have to do your part and not let it change how you see yourself. If you take on that limited identity, not able, the giant's too big, I'm not qualified, you're defeating yourself. You have to come into agreement with what God has spoken over your life. Get your identity from him and not from people, not from circumstances, not from your own feelings. If you're relying on those things, you'll take on the wrong identity. Well, this little boy grew up with the dream that God put on his heart. All the circumstances said that it would never happen. In his late 20s, for 3 years, he was homeless, had to live out of his car. His environment said, you'll never get out of this pit. But deep down, like Joseph, he knew he was a prince in a pit, that the favor of God was on his life. He kept seeing himself successful, lifting people up, making a difference with his life. God began to open doors and bring the right people. Today, that young boy, Stevie, is Steve Harvey. He's on television all the time, making people laugh. He gives all the credit to God. Are you letting your environment define who you are? Are your circumstances dictating your identity? You need to go back to who God says you are. Don't let negative circumstances talk you out of what God has spoken over your life. This is what the 10 spies did in the scripture. Moses sent them in to spy out the promised land. After 40 days, they came back and said, Moses, we don't have a chance. The people are huge. We'll never defeat them. We felt like grasshoppers compared to them. Notice how they saw themselves. We're just grasshoppers. We're weak. We're defeated. of all the analogies they could have come up with, they used a little insect, a little bug that hops around. They could have at least said, we're just like a gerbil, we're like a rabbit, we're like a goat. What's amazing is these 10 spies were the cream of the crop. They were warriors. They were skilled.